Hey, what's happening, Baltimore Ravens fans? Welcome back to The Bald Perspective. On your way in the door, go ahead and tap that like button, hit subscribe if you never subscribed, and hit that notification bell so you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk. All right, guys, so it is draft season, and it's time to have draft conversations. But before we get into who the Baltimore Ravens are drafting, I think we need to talk about what the Baltimore Ravens are drafting, not necessarily position groups or what type of player. You see, I believe that the Baltimore Ravens are in kind of a crossroads. I think this offseason, this draft class in particular, puts the Baltimore Ravens at a crossroad that we haven't been in some time, or a crossroads that we haven't been willing to pull up to in some time, and that is the identity crossroads. You see, over the course of the last two seasons, 2024, 25, 25, and 26, I think that the Baltimore Ravens have consistently struggled with who they are, right? Did they still want to be a run first team with a Lamar Jackson led offense and still play complementary defense? Or did they want to be a defensive team with a complementary offense? Nevertheless, it has put the Baltimore Ravens in a situation where they're trying to figure out who they're going to be next, right? We understand that there has been a complete regime change, which was much needed, but who are the Baltimore Ravens and what type of player do they need to draft? I think as we are having, excuse me, I think as we are having an identity change, we also have to check in on the mentality of this Baltimore Ravens team. You see, in the EDC, Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, Kyle Hamilton era, which began in 2018, basically, as EDC took claim for the Lamar Jackson draft pick. The Baltimore Ravens have drafted good players, but nobody has really been elite with the exception of Lamar Jackson and Kyle Hamilton. In an entire 8, 9 year draft period, you only walked away with two really elite players. Okay? And I think part of that is because they struggled with who they were. You see, I think the Baltimore Ravens have been looking to reestablish, redevelop, re-implement their former glory. You see, the Baltimore Ravens have been known for the quote, play like a Raven. Well, that play like a Raven has to be linked to when they were in championship contention. First championship in 2000, second championship the 2012-2013 season. And that's kind of when that mantra was created, right? Smash mouth defense, led by Ray Lewis. Back end tight, led by Ed Reed. And offense, just enough. If we're all the way honest, offense in that era between the 2000 and 2012 championship teams was just enough offense, with the exception of the playoff run that Joe Flacco put on to win that final championship that the Baltimore Ravens captured way back then, right? And when you look at it, the Baltimore Ravens have never really, I'm going to say, thought highly of offense, because you haven't really seen the Baltimore Ravens invest in offense in free agency. You haven't seen them really invest in offense in trade. You can see some draft picks for sure. You can see first rounders. You can see first round draft picks, wide receivers and linemen and so on and so forth, but not really a heavy investment. The heavy investment has been defensively, which is a part of the Baltimore Ravens history, trying to establish or keep up that defensive identity. And I think part of what has caused the Baltimore Ravens to struggle is not really recognizing that we don't have those type of players on this team up until this point. Those Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, back in the day, Chris McAllister, Peter Boulware, Haloti Ngata. When you think about Terrell Suggs. See, we don't have those caliber of players. Not caliber in talent only, but caliber in mentality as well. We don't have those. So it was going to be almost impossible to reestablish or to maintain that former glory. And so what you've seen from the Baltimore Ravens is an attempt to be what they used to be instead of becoming what they really are. Let me give you an example. After Ray Lewis retired, the Baltimore Ravens drafted C.J. Mosley. He was supposed to be the Ray Lewis replacement. He did a good job, but he moved on in free agency. After C.J. Mosley departed, they drafted Patrick Queen, 2020 first round. Right? He did an okay job, but it wasn't good enough, so they went out and got Roquan Smith, who is a former first rounder. Also, they drafted Trent Simpson and Teddy Buchanan. So you see the willingness to continue to try to add linebacking components. All right? When you look at the safety position specifically, because we're talking about the Ray, Ed, and T. Sizzle era, right? You look at Matt Elam, didn't really work out. Then you look at Kyle Hamilton, but Kyle Hamilton is not really a free safety. Kyle Hamilton is kind of a Swiss Army knife, strong safety type. And then you see a drafting of Malachi Starks. So here you have again another 3 first rounders trying to do what? Reestablish what they formerly had. This is what I think has happened. And then you've seen a couple of different attempts to try and get an edge rush in house, and it has never really worked out. But what they've ignored is what they actually were. At the time that they were doing this re-implementation, they were ignoring, in my opinion, they have been ignoring building around what they had offensively, which is something they've done historically. They did not really build around Joe Flacco. They would bring in some older parts. They would pick up some draft picks, but they would never really go out and get that number 1 level wide receiver until they went out and got Anquan Bolden, and on schedule, they went and won the Super Bowl. Same context for Lamar Jackson. They haven't really went out and got that number 1 wide receiver. They definitely spent some draft picks. I will not deny that. But they never really went out and got that number 1 guy, right? They haven't really invested in the offense at the same level that they've invested in the defense. And this is not really about Lamar Jackson. This is about who the Baltimore Ravens have been and what they need to become. So you can kind of see this identity crisis with how they've drafted, how they've traded, and also who they've signed in free agency. They haven't really prioritized ever offense. Now, they stayed tight with some tight ends. I mean, going all the way back to Todd Heap, high-end tight end. From Todd Heap to Dennis Pitta, Max Williams, Mark Andrews, Charlie Kolar, Darren Waller, who actually became a tight end more after he left. But you can see, Isaiah Likely, you can see the history of where they've hit in the draft and where they've missed in the draft, right? And so who the Baltimore Ravens are right now is a question mark. That's why I think this draft in particular has to be not about Lamar Jackson and building around him, not about Kyle Hamilton and building around him, but about Jesse Minter. Belanger, you crazy. Let me explain. You see, in the John Harbaugh era, there was a certain type of player that he drafted. We won't get too deep into that. There was a certain type of culture that he established. We won't get too deep into that. And just because you have a new regime does not mean the mentality that has been groomed by John Harbaugh goes away. So Minter is going to need an opportunity to get 8 or 9 guys in this draft that he can groom and develop into who he needs them to be, who this team needs them to be, and who the Baltimore Ravens are going to start being in 2026. I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to look for guys who have a little bit of a nasty streak, guys who have power and athleticism, guys who will get in your face a little bit. Not reckless, right? Not throwing hands, not stomping on people when they're down on the ground, but guys who will display a little bit of toughness, a little bit of an attitude. See, we've lost that over the last couple of seasons. And if anything we want from our past is attitude. Anything you knew about Ray, Ed, T, Sizzle, and everything back from that era is that they had toughness, attitude, and a mentality. We don't have that. And so I think if Jesse Minter does anything in this draft, it's going to be looking for guys, hunting them down, putting them on the board for guys who are going to bring a toughness. Now, these guys are rookies, so I'm not even saying that they need to come in and start and be high-end rotational dudes, but it's the beginning of the development and implementation of a new culture and a new systematic approach of being tough and committed and rugged. That's what I think this draft has to be about. So I'm looking for Jesse Minter to put his mark on this particular draft with drafting a tough-minded player. So our first mock draft will be hunting down guys who are known for being tough, have a little bit of nasty to them, and bring that to the team in 2026. I'm looking for a crop of new players who will challenge the players who are already here to either shape up or ship out. You see, because in truth, Marlon Humphrey and Ronnie Stanley are the oldest tenured Ravens. From them goes to Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. And then from there, you're probably looking at Meta BK, Rashad Bateman, Kyle Hamilton, right? And all of that is under that John Harbaugh regime. No slight to John Harbaugh. I thought he was good for whatever he was good for, but he had to go because whatever he was good for had ran out. But some of those players still remain. And some of that old mentality will remain. So I'm looking in this draft for a group of tough, hard-nosed players to come in. Not just defenders. I'm looking for some offensive players to have a little bit of mean streak to them. An offensive lineman who will take you and drive you behind all the way back to the goalpost and then throw you down on the goalpost. That kind of mentality. We need that. A big-bodied wide receiver who's not just talented, but physical. He'll catch the ball and run you over with no second thought. That's what we need on this team. So you guys let me know what you think. And until next time, I'm your guy Boulanger. I'm out. Video number 2. You know what? I'm not even going to do a video number 2. I'm just going to do this one. Because, let's see.